Every bug on Earth has its own story, and its own nightmare. From ants enslaved by mind-controlling fungi to wasps turning spiders into zombie builders, nature's full of creepy partnerships you've never imagined. In just 15 minutes, we're breaking down every bug, and the parasites that secretly pull their strings. Level 1. The world calls it lucky, but that shell hides a slow death. The Dinocampus coccinelli wasp doesn't sting for defense. It stings to hijack. One egg gets injected straight into the ladybug's body cavity. The larva inside starts feeding on fat and soft tissue, avoiding the heart and brain so the ladybug stays alive. After about 20 days, it chews its way out through the abdomen and spins a cocoon under the ladybug's legs. What's left is worse than death. The ladybug stays half alive, twitching, defending the cocoon that contains its killer. Scientists call this behavioral manipulation, but it's really just slavery with organs. Some ladybugs survive after the wasp hatches, but they're broken. They shake, barely move, and never fly again. Level 2. Every child knows monarchs for their beauty. Few know that most die from something smaller than dust. The Ophriocistis electrocera parasite spreads through milkweed leaves, coating the eggs and infecting newborn larvae. Once inside, the spores multiply through the caterpillar's tissue. It still eats and grows, but its insides rot quietly. When it tries to pupate, the infection blocks the molting process. The chrysalis darkens early. Adults that emerge have torn wings, weak flight, and shorter lives, sometimes only half the normal 6-week lifespan. Female monarchs pass the infection through every egg they lay. The more generations migrate south, the weaker the bloodline gets. A parasite that never kills fast still ends entire migrations. Level 3. Ants live by order, but one parasite turns that order into a performance. Myrmecanema neotropicum, a roundworm, infects tropical ants and transforms their rear ends into fake red berries. The parasite forms a sac filled with red eggs that mimic ripe fruit. Birds eat the infected ants, thinking they're berries. The eggs hatch inside the bird's gut, drop out in feces, and new ants pick them up to feed their larvae. The parasite needs both the bird and the ant to exist, one as a stomach, one as a vessel. Infected ants climb high, exposing themselves to be seen. It's not random. Their nervous system gets rewritten to make them suicidal. The worm doesn't just live inside the ant, it writes the final act. Level 4. Crickets don't swim, yet thousands end up drowning each night because of Spinochordodes telinii, a long, thread-like hairworm. The larva enters through drinking water or infected prey. Inside, it coils around the organs and grows for up to 3 months, sometimes reaching 30 centimeters long, while the cricket is barely 2 centimeters. Then the command comes. The worm releases proteins that alter brain chemistry. The insect walks toward water, jumps in, and drowns. The worm bursts out through the body wall, uncoiling like a rope. It mates in the water, starts over, and the cricket remains a husk. It's not mind control by magic, it's chemical engineering, perfected by evolution. Level 5. Bees aren't just under attack from pesticides. Their own larvae rot from the inside out. The sac brood virus infects baby bees at the larval stage. It stops them from completing metamorphosis. Their skin hardens into a thin crust, filled with liquid, like a dried grape full of syrup. When workers try to clean the cell, they spread the virus mouth to mouth. Colonies lose entire sections of brood in weeks. Under light, infected cells shimmer silver, a sign of viral collapse. The queens lay new eggs, but the infection doesn't stop. It spreads across hives through pollen, tools, and beekeepers. The virus doesn't just kill bees, it kills pollination, honey yield, and the rhythm of entire ecosystems. Level 6. Termites eat wood, but they don't digest it. They rely on tiny protozoa in their gut to break cellulose down. Inside those protozoa live bacterial symbionts, and even smaller bacteriophages that infect those bacteria. It's a Russian doll of parasitism, a termite full of protozoa, each protozoan full of bacteria, each bacterium full of a virus. Remove any layer, and the system collapses. Termites die within 5 days if those protozoa are lost. The weird part, these microbes don't exist outside termite guts. Each colony passes them mouth to mouth through anal feeding, yes, literal fecal transfer. It's disgusting, precise, and essential. A termite is not one creature, it's a living microbiome powered by parasites that never see daylight. Level 7. Fire ants dominate every ecosystem they enter, until the Pseudactian tricuspis fly arrives. The fly is smaller than a sesame seed, but deadlier than any predator. It targets only fire ants, landing for less than half a second to inject a single egg behind the head. Inside, the larva migrates to the brain, eats nerve tissue, and releases chemicals that make the ant wander away from its colony. Then, around 2 weeks later, the larva secretes an enzyme that dissolves the connective tissue around the neck. The head falls off. The larva pupates inside the skull, protected by the exoskeleton. When the fly emerges, it leaves the decapitated head hollow. Farmers in the southern US use these flies as biological control, but watching one emerge from a skull is like watching a horror film in slow motion. Level 8. If nature ever made a supervillain, it's the emerald jewel wasp, Ampulex compressa. Its metallic green body looks beautiful, right up to the moment it paralyzes a cockroach with surgical precision. The first sting disables the front legs. The second sting goes into the brain, targeting the escape center. Once that's neutralized, the roach becomes passive. The wasp chews off the antenna tips and drinks hemolymph to test the venom dose. Then it leads the roach into a burrow, like a human walking a dog. One egg is glued to the belly. The larva burrows in, eating organs in order: fat, muscle, heart, brain. The process lasts a full week. When the adult wasp emerges, the roach's body remains upright, hollowed out, as if still alive. It's not just parasitism, it's body theft perfected. Level 9. Beautiful wings mean nothing when your organs are melting. The tachinid fly specializes in butterflies, moths, and caterpillars. It drops eggs directly on the host's back, sometimes hundreds at once. The larvae hatch and burrow inward, eating tissue layer by layer. They avoid vital organs until the final stage, keeping the host alive as long as possible. In the last 48 hours, they destroy everything. The caterpillar darkens, stiffens, and splits open as the larvae crawl out to pupate. Adult tachinid flies can live for 40 days, laying up to 1,000 eggs each. Gardeners consider them useful for pest control, but up close, it's a slow-motion massacre. Even the monarch, with all its toxins, can't stop them. The maggots simply adapt, digesting poison as fuel. Level 10. Houseflies live short lives, usually less than a month. But some never make it past a week because of Entomophora muscae, a fungus that doesn't just kill them, it uses them as billboards. It starts when spores land on the fly's skin. Within hours, microscopic filaments pierce the exoskeleton and spread through the blood. The fungus eats from the inside out, releasing neurotoxins that force the fly to climb up walls or windows. Then, right before death, it sticks its wings out at an angle of 45 degrees, the fungus's signal that the launch pad is ready. Overnight, spores burst through the body and shoot into the air like biological shrapnel, infecting any nearby flies. The corpse stays glued to the wall for days, white fuzz creeping out of its joints. By the time the fungus dries, everything inside has liquefied. Before we move to the next, most disturbing parasite, hit like to keep the chaos alive. Subscribe now, you won't want to miss the next twisted twist of nature. Level 11. The rove beetle looks normal, until you find out that it's crawling with hister beetle larvae that use it as a mobile cradle. The larvae cling to the adult's underside, feeding on its fluids through tiny punctures while it walks. They mature inside the living beetle, often for 10 to 12 days, eating muscle tissue slowly so the host doesn't die too early. When the larvae finally pupate, the beetle's shell splits apart, and the new adults crawl out of what looks like a moving carcass. What's worse, the newly emerged beetles sometimes climb onto another host immediately, continuing the cycle. Scientists call it foracy, but it's closer to parasitic recycling. Level 12. Entomophaga grilli is one of the few parasites that can wipe out whole grasshopper populations. Each spore measures less than 5 micrometers wide, light enough to float miles in dry air. Once a spore lands on a grasshopper's body, it penetrates through natural openings in less than 24 hours. The fungus grows inside for about 5 to 7 days, feeding on fat tissue and blood. When it reaches the brain, it releases a compound called dopamine beta-hydroxylase, which forces the insect to climb vegetation before dying. Death happens fast, usually within a week. The body stays attached to the grass blade for another 48 hours, while white filaments grow from the abdomen, legs, and eyes. Each corpse releases up to 10 million spores, coating nearby plants. Farmers in Canada and the US report outbreaks where over 90% of grasshoppers in a single field die standing upright. Level 13. Meet the Strepsiptera, a parasitic insect that specializes in hijacking other insects. Females spend their entire lives inside a host's body, usually a wasp or bee. Only the head and thorax stick out between body segments, like a second creature living under the skin. Inside, she gives birth to thousands of larvae, which chew their way out, killing the host instantly. The males, meanwhile, are winged and short-lived. They live less than 5 hours, just long enough to find another infected host and mate. When the larvae crawl onto flowers, visiting bees pick them up, carrying them home like infected pollen. It's parasitism designed to hide inside beauty, and every flower can become a trap. Level 14. Assassin bugs are hunters with needle-like mouths that pierce prey and drink them dry. But one species, the Triatoma infestans, often carries a parasite far worse, Trypanosoma cruzi, the protozoan that causes Chagas disease. The bug itself doesn't die from it. Instead, it becomes a carrier that spreads it through its droppings. After feeding on blood, the bug defecates near the bite wound. The parasite enters through the skin, infecting mammals, including humans, and can live in the bloodstream for decades. While the bug keeps hunting, the parasite multiplies silently, waiting for a new host. What's terrifying is how long the bug lives, up to 2 years, meaning one infected assassin bug can spread thousands of parasites without ever dying from it. Level 15. Dragonflies begin life as nymphs underwater. During that stage, they fall prey to parasitic water mites that attach under their wings before they ever fly. These mites pierce the skin and feed on blood, staying hidden for weeks until the dragonfly matures. When the adult emerges from the water, the mites cling on and continue feeding, draining energy that would have gone into flying or mating. Some dragonflies carry over 200 mites at once, enough to reduce their flight range by half. They never drop off until the host dies or falls back into water. Then, new mites hatch, waiting for the next nymph to crawl up. It's a cycle that starts underwater and ends with flight failure. Level 16. The Ophiocordyceps unilateralis fungus is the master of insect control. It targets carpenter ants in tropical forests. Spores land on the ant's exoskeleton, germinate, and push inside within 48 hours. The fungus grows filaments that invade the brain, releasing chemicals that force the ant to climb vegetation and bite down on the underside of a leaf. Then it kills the ant and grows a stalk out of its skull. Each stalk releases hundreds of thousands of spores, infecting other ants that walk by. Entire colonies collapse within days, leaving a patch of forest filled with what scientists call ant graveyards. Each stalk is a flag planted by the fungus, a signal that another life has been rewritten. Level 17. Deep in Costa Rica's forests lives a parasite that treats design like instinct, the Hymenoepimesis argyrophaga wasp. It hunts only one target, the Plesiometa argyra, an orb-weaving spider known for its perfect circular webs. When the wasp finds one, it swoops down, paralyzes the spider just long enough to lay a single translucent egg on its abdomen, and leaves. The spider wakes up hours later and goes back to work, unaware that something alive is now growing on its back. The larva hatches within a few days and starts feeding on the spider's hemolymph, the insect version of blood. It eats just enough to stay alive but never enough to kill. The spider continues spinning webs for another 7 to 10 days, living its normal life as a moving food source. Then one night, something changes. The larva injects a neurotoxin cocktail directly into the spider's body, hijacking its brain. The web pattern becomes unrecognizable, not round, not functional, but geometrically precise. This new web isn't meant to catch prey, it's meant to protect the wasp. The larva commands the spider to spin a dense, cross-brace structure, strands thicker than normal silk, woven with more anchoring points. Researchers measured these webs to be 40% stronger than a natural one. Once the pattern is complete, the spider freezes under the toxin's effect and dies within minutes. Level 18. At the peak of parasitic manipulation is the lancet liver fluke, Dicrocelium dendriticum. It's a flatworm only a few millimeters long, but its life story crosses 3 species. It begins in the droppings of grazing animals. Snails eat the eggs, digest the shell, and release slime balls filled with larvae. Then ants come along and consume the slime. Inside them, the larvae split into 2 groups, some rest harmlessly in the abdomen, while one travels up to the brain. That single larva is the driver. It wedges itself into the subesophageal ganglion, a tiny bundle of nerves that controls the mandibles and movement. When night comes, it takes over. The ant stops wandering and climbs to the top of a grass blade. Then it bites down tight, locking its jaws in place with a force strong enough to survive the night's wind. If a grazing animal passes by at dawn, it eats the dew-covered grass and the infected ant along with it. Once inside, the parasite migrates to the animal's bile ducts, where it grows to adulthood and lays thousands of eggs. During the day, when the sun rises and the air warms, the ant regains control and climbs back down to avoid being cooked alive. This nightly cycle repeats for weeks, until either the ant is eaten or starves. Parasites don't just live, they rewrite the rules of life. Every bug here tells a story of control, horror, and survival. If you thought nature was cute, think again, it's a nightmare in motion. Hit like, subscribe, and dive deeper into the dark side of insects. Stick around, the next creature you meet might already be plotting.